Welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and I'm so excited to have you here. This podcast is about all things wellness. Each week, we will focus on a word of the day, and I interview some of the most inspirational people I know and share that inspiration with you. Join me, let's learn together on What's the Word.
This is the place where I belong.
Hi, and welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and today we have a very special, unique interview with someone that I have been so excited to bring to you. His name is Brent Bruning, and he is a hand analyst. Yes, you heard me right. He does hand analysis, which if you don't know what that is, you will soon find out. And he is a master hand analyst from the Institute of Hand Analysis. And it's very different from palmistry or astrology in that he's not going to read your future. He actually can read you. So I'm going to tell you about a little story in a moment that I experienced. But before I do, I just want to bring our guest on. He is someone that is very special to me. And Brent is here with us today. So whether you're watching the interview or listening on Apple or Spotify, thank you so much for being here. And Brent, I want to just take a moment to thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's really great what you're doing, and you're hitting all these different angles of health and well-being, and mindfulness, and breakthroughs, and empowerment, and that's really what I'm hoping people see from the hands is that I'm able to look at your potential and break through. So I think it's a great environment to be able to talk about this. So thank you for creating the platform to, show people that what is possible when you read someone's hands.
I love it. And in the nature of What's the Word, I have every guest choose a word of the day, and you chose the word power or powerful, which by definition means having great power or strength. So can you just tap into a little bit of what that means to you, and specifically pertaining to what we're going to talk about today? What is the power that you're thinking of?
Yeah. So here we're talking about, well, at least from the perspective of the hand, that everyone has multiple powers. And we have not only tolerance for certain experiences, but we actually get fulfillment from these experiences. And the longevity of experiences that we love to have shows up in the hand in different ways, in multiple, like literally 100 different ways. You're looking at the way that the hand is routing these different experiences, and the powers that you have create this life pattern. So you might have a power of power itself, being a visionary leader. You might also have a power of responsibility and integrity that other people don't. And that puts you in a different life pattern. You might have a power of healing, or a power of creativity, or a power of applause and recognition, and being able to take everything and make it into with your Midas touch, turn it into gold, and make everybody into the spotlight. That might be your power, or power of collecting, or being able to bring people together and be the glue of a family, or the power to just manifest results. So all of these different powers have been mapped out since Aristotle, for about 2,500 years. And every part of the hand represents a different aspect of that power. And you can literally see how big that region is by both the fingerprint combinations that are in the hand and the regions.
Wow. It's so fascinating. And I will never forget. And for anyone that's watching or listening, I have to share really quickly how you and I met, because that story to me, and I'll never forget, getting the phone call from our mutual friend who was taking my workouts online. We had never met before. Mike, thank you so much for the intro. But he said as a thank you, he wanted to send me to you and have you analyze my hand as a thank you or a gift for me. And I remember thinking, okay, well, this is interesting. First of all, really sweet of him, but what does that even mean? And I remember thinking to myself, so if anyone's listening or watching, you might be this person right now going, well, what does this really mean? And I wasn't sure if it was getting like a palm reading or something with astrology. And then I remember that you emailed me, you knew nothing about me, and you said, send me all these pictures of your hands. I need this, 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 this. And sure enough, it took me 5 times before I actually got it right in the right lighting. But then you and I had a meeting over Zoom because you live in Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yes. So you're all the way in Switzerland, and you and I set up a Zoom, and we chatted for a while about my hands. You had a beautiful printout that I love and adore so much because the story, you essentially knew so much about me without knowing me, just based on my hands. And it was a very magical day in many ways for me. So I just, first of all, I want to let anyone know that's a skeptic or thinking of this, like, what does this stuff really mean? I too had no idea before meeting you. And now that's why I've been so excited to have you on What's the Word, because I really feel like more people need to know about this. I loved when you had explained to me, and I want you to explain this to our audience as well. I remember you giving me the visual of our hands and then our brain. And I remember you explaining to me something about the correlation of like how our hands are and then our brain and our senses and all those kind of things. So can you tap into kind of, just what is really, what is the correlation of these lines on our hands and where they're positioned? How do we know who we are based on that?
Yeah, sure. So what you're saying is, and what Jamie is saying is that I got tested, right? So Mike loves to test me with random photos of people's hands. And, I was reading, for example, the other day of this random hand that comes through. And by being able to recognize the pattern, I could recognize what I had as a media mogul. And that's a really strange thing. Or you can, see that somebody's a shoemaker, right? Those
Right.
are, or you can see that the type of films that they make if they're a film director. And that seems very, very odd for the normal person to go, well, I have free choice. This is not possible. So the first thing you have to get around this nature versus nurture discussion about destiny and free will is that you are a biological being and you have a life pattern. And that's already been established. Since the 60s, they have studied twins separated from birth. And they found out, for example, the twins, Jim Springer and Jim Lewis, that they find out after 39 years that they have a twin. They look up at the adoption papers, and he's living in a city right next door. And they both drive the same model of Chevrolet. They held jobs in law enforcement. They liked stock car racing. They had wood sheds in their back of their houses. And they married a woman named Linda. And after divorcing, remarried a woman named Betty. And both their sons were named James Allen. So that's really freaky when you consider that that is just so weird, that coincidence. But it's in all twins separated from birth. If you want, there's a great film out about that, Three Identical Strangers. But even if you don't have a twin, that doesn't mean you don't have a pattern. So we all have a biological pattern, and that's really been emphasized, especially with the work that Dr. Joe Dispenza has done in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. He's talking about this life pattern, that we all have this kind of drive towards certain experiences, right? And the way that I would explain that in terms of the nervous system is that we all have an appetite. We all have urges for certain experiences. Like if you go to an Italian restaurant, you might every time get raviolis, where you look at somebody else and they have this plate of asparagus, which is so wrong in an Italian restaurant, but they'll do it. You see it all the time in Switzerland. And you just go, what is it that compels a person to do that? And that's the ka-chunk, right? And the same way that these twins that I just said, they have their ka-chunk. They've been like making toys since they were, kids, and now that's their stress release. And they make their little toys in the back of their houses, and they make their little birdhouses. Both of them do the same thing. So that's an experience. So for you to understand even the notion of what hands have a role in this life pattern, first you have to accept one fundamental thing, and that every experience you have is biological, and that every experience that you have runs through a set of electricity of serotonin, dopamine that's routing through your entire nervous system. And mainly this conversation that you're listening to right now and sitting in your chair and being in your room, the big fundamental system that is allowing you to process reality is your sensory cortex. And they did a mapping of that sensory cortex by square millimeter through your entire body. And if you expand it in this weird model, you would see that your lips would be like the size of a basketball, and your hands would be the size of beach umbrellas. That's how big the sensory cortex is routed through your hands. In other words, your hands are not just these instruments that you're using, they are an extension of your sensory cortex. And so you're looking at an extension of your brain, your limbic system, the things that trigger you, the things that turn you on. So if you have any doubt about that, just go through 3 months of electric shock therapy and you'll see all of your hands, both hands explode with lines. So people think that the lines in your hand are based on the fact that you bend your hands. That's totally not true. It's the way that your neurology is. If you look at Snoop Dogg's hand, or anyone what we characterize as fire hands, they have this, like, it looks like a cobweb of lines going all the way through their palm. That doesn't mean he bends his hand more than you do. It means that he's got this or he's more neurotic. He needs more experiences. And if he doesn't get this full turn on of all these different perspectives, he falls asleep. Some people don't. Some people really have like 3 main lines and a big, thick skin, like a farmer's hand. And there you can just say, okay, well, that guy is just living a pretty simple life. He milks the cows, he goes, loves, he gets married early, and so they have a more regimented life. And that also shows up in the skin ridges and the lines. But the most important part of the lines is the way that the brain is forming. So when you're looking at a hand, you're really seeing the 3 stages of the brain. You're seeing, like, if you recall what a fetus looks like at 7 weeks, it just looks like this amphibian. Well, at that point, all you have is the palm of your hand. You have essentially a fin. And then the next stage, when the midbrain, the emotional center responsible for the most amazing experiences of your life, which is serotonin, dopamine, DMT, if you're a scientist, that all gets introduced from the 7th week to the 9th week marker. And at that point, at the same time when you have a heartbeat, at that point when you have the heartbeat released and you get this rush of aliveness, the system becomes self-aware. And at that point, it releases the first line that comes all the way around which is the area around your thumb, and that's called the lifeline. You're aware of your body. That's when the fetus starts moving its legs and arms. And then the next couple of weeks, you get these facial expressions. Then you get the horizontal line, and the larger that line is, the more animated the person's facial expressions are. And then the third is you shine a flashlight in the womb, and they can see that, and they turn to that flashlight. That's a decision, or to turn upside down. And that's when the third line, right in the middle of those 2 lines, that's the headline. Any problem with those 3 lines, you can see a congenital defect, which is why half of the people with Down syndrome get a conjoined line in that area. So these lines are our operating system. And by reading that, you can see what is your, how anchored you are, how much you need expression and sexuality and intensity, how long you think, right? If you're a preoccupied person, you get a pretty long headline. And then probably the most important event in that area is, if you're a spiritual person, you would say your soul comes into your body. If you're a scientist, you would say that the being becomes conscious. The building blocks of the amygdala and the pineal gland, which is, if you're spiritual, you would say when you meditate with your third eye, you switch on this pineal gland, is releasing all of these amazing hormones and neurotransmitters throughout this system. And the hands are amplifying it. And at that point, you have nothing but a water balloon, essentially, of a hand. You have no skin. And it's really tiny, but it's amplifying everything in your experience. And since the time of the Greeks, they have mapped every part of your hand to a different area of experience. Now you imagine this flood of experiences coming in, and you're having a first impression of life. And you go to the index finger, which is characterized as direction. It's characterized as leading. We point with our index finger. We don't point with any other part of our hand. And the Greeks called that the Jupiter finger. So palmists got a hold of that system, and for 2,500 years, they've been saying and trying to relate it to the planets and everything. I don't do that, but I can tell you that's a great system. They found the map, and that map shows that anything around that index finger really shows your confidence, your self-esteem, your sense of wanting to expand your vision. And you can see this really easy by just organizing people by big index fingers. And then you can see the dominant people. It's that easy. You can do it right now with 10 people. And then you can just look at it and you can see all the people with those big index fingers. So take that into consideration with this, what I'm about to tell you. Your soul or your blueprint of life is coming in at 7 and 9 weeks. And let's say that you get a rush of serotonin. What that physically looks like in the index finger is a big ball. It's a volar pad. It looks like a big balloon. And you're getting them all throughout your fingers, some more than some less. You carry that ball for the next 3 to 4 months. And then finally you get skin over that and you get a topographical map of that ball. So now when I'm looking at the hand and I can see what you have is a ball or ultimately a circle there, then what you're seeing is this person really gets off on this type of experience. And then you can interview people in both directions. You can say, all right, let's find all the Richard Bransons out there and look at their fingerprints and see, wow, there's a circle every single time, right in the index finger. And find all the famous people. And like I said, this is a blueprint for each finger in every part of the hand. And so that was by, let's say, for the last, since 2007, that's been my endeavor to validate this discovery that had already been validated by 500,000 people's hands from the Institute of Hand Analysis by a guy named Richard Unger, who's personally read 70,000 hands. So he has seen the system over and over and over about how people are just trying to crave certain experiences. And they would say, it's my life purpose to be on stage. And then they'd have a circle on their ring finger, which is the creative stage. So that's how I was able to read Jaime's hand. I was able to look at somebody who is all about, empowerment. And a really interesting thing happens about hands that maybe I need to talk about. For most people, they agree different people have different hands. Okay. But what you probably don't realize is that the more similar your hand is to another person, the more similar your life is, the more similar your personality is, the more similar your life pattern is. And so that's phenomenal, good information if you're wanting to find out about yourself. It's phenomenal if you want to break through a new pattern in your life. You have to first see everything that you're doing, and then you can see the blind spots of that pattern by looking at everyone else who has your hand, and they all have the same blind spots. So when I was looking at Jaime's hand, I was looking at somebody who has all these wave-like patterns through her fingers. Well, everybody who has waves, and I'd say you can categorize people by any configuration in the hand. You can literally take and go, all right, we'll get all the people with short heart lines and then see how they express themselves. Not much. You can take everyone with fingerprints, and just like you can organize a bunch of Great Danes together and go, okay, all these big dogs, what do they have in common as a personality compared to the Chihuahuas, right? We do that with dogs. We don't do it with people, but you can't. And you can do it with hands, just no problem. And so what happens when you organize people by these big wave, like you might even look in your own finger, and you might see this kind of wave pattern that comes in from one side and returns from the same direction it goes. And what I was looking at, Jamie, is the pattern that you see for all those people. They're very, very connected emotionally. And the people that don't have that, like the hands of, say, for example, Eminem, whose hands are red, or Johnny Depp, they're a little bit more distant. They don't have those. Or people like Tony Robbins, who have all these circles everywhere. They're all about needing to fulfill their potential and be the answer for everything. They have a different life pattern because they have circles everywhere, because they have all this potential. They had these big balls when they were a fetus, and they come out going, I need to do this and this and this and this and this and this. And then the whole hand is just broadcasting a fundamental set of needs that they have to do all at the same time. Whereas in Jamie, she just has waves everywhere. And so when you organize everyone with these waves, patterns, you see something really cool, that all of them are in a totally different story, and how they broadcast the meaning in their life is around love and connection. They need a lot of intimacy. They need a lot of closeness. And they, of course, with that level of sensitivity, it's like they really see the world in areas like, if you go to a party and you see people that are not talking, nobody's touched the pretzels because the host hasn't touched the pretzels. Somebody needs to break the ice. Well, if you're somebody like Jamie, you really feel that experience. Other people come in and they don't even see it. They're like, okay, nobody's talking, but wow, this is a really great house, great architecture. I wonder where they got the pretzels. They're just in a different frame. So the way that Jamie is able to see, or her reality is all being written completely through a set of emotions. And the more emotional she is, the more intense the closeness and intimacy she's able to get in these type of interviews, then naturally, the more of a meaningful story she's going to have. Now, why that's important is that some people come to me and they're not in that story, and they're complaining. They're in a marriage they can't get out of. Their life has been dull for the last 5 years, and they're wondering, what am I doing wrong? I'm in burnout. But you have to understand that when I'm reading your fingerprints, I'm reading what your rocket fuel is. And so if you're not getting your rocket fuel, then what you're going to be doing is trying to look for it externally. You're going to be drinking more cups of coffee. You're going to exercise more. I mean, I've read so many triathletes that once they figure out the fingerprint pattern, they double their energy. They double it. Because once you are able to understand how you are made and how your own serotonin and dopamine is produced by looking at your life pattern in the hands, you will double your energy. That's a fact. And what you do then with that doubled energy is you start releasing stress. So people think that I'm a hand analyst, and they with their prejudice, they go, okay, you must be a palm reader. No, what I'm doing is I'm showing people how to release their age, because this life pattern is a way that you are carrying stress that you don't even know. And when you understand how you particularly, just like those twins, they may have a very particular stress. But when you organize, and on my computer, I've got 20,000 hands. So when you organize people by hands, you see they all have the same problems and they carry the same stress. And as you know, stress ages. But the great thing is that when you can understand the stress that you're carrying, and it's a biological pattern and an addiction for you to do that, and you release it, then what you see is, for most of the cases, that in the longer you understand this, the more you release the age. For most of the people that are going through the process, that I'm taking them through, they're losing about 5 to 10 years of age. That's a fact. I can show you picture after picture. And that is because what I'm doing is I'm first showing you your blueprint. And from that blueprint, I'm showing you what is called the shadow side, which is all the areas you're not looking at it because you get afraid. Well, what is fear? That's the amygdala releasing a protective need. And that's through all of the cortisol and the adrenaline. Now, just imagine that creates over time, anything you do for 28 days creates a habit. Imagine doing it over a lifetime. You're not even conscious that you do it. And that is what causes you to then interpret your father in a certain way, or men in a certain way, or this function of society, or Donald Trump lovers in a certain way. You just make all of these different assumptions about it. And underneath there is a fear, and underneath that is emotion you don't want to feel, and you don't have a tolerance. And so as a result of opening this story up to you and you connecting to those emotions that are in the hand, I can tell you exactly what you love and exactly what you don't like. And then opening the story of what you don't like and have you eat that asparagus on the plate. And so have you see all that area that you don't want to go into and realize, hey, how long have you been blocked in this area? How long have you felt it so that you have been under so much self-control that you can't forgive anybody? You can't open your heart to anyone. So the map is so individual that when I read hands for TEDx, they stood by and they were going, you must be telling the same thing for everybody. I read everyone at TEDx, or at least everyone I could in a day. 250 people lined up at a booth, and people were standing by listening and seeing. Every hand told a very unique story because everyone's life pattern is unique.
Wow. Okay. Right now, I have to tell you, I couldn't even stop you to ask any sort of question because you just offered so much value right now, which I knew you would do today. And for anyone that's listening or watching, and especially specifically for anyone that's going or for before this conversation thinking, well, I don't really know about this or I don't really know about that. You just gave so much beautiful information that is, scientific and real, and also the fact that you can, and I'm certain that anyone that's watching or listening right now is looking at their hand at some point going, okay, well, I don't really know what any of this stuff means. And maybe they are still skeptical about some of the things, but that's also what I love is that you're doing this to help others. My company is all about self-care, which is enhancing your well-being through different modalities and taking responsibility for the things that you need to do. It doesn't mean just luxurious bubble baths and spa days. And so you now are helping to serve so many people by helping them see their hands as they are and take what you call, I believe, the shift. And it's something that you teach, and you help others to identify what their life pattern is. And I will tell you, and to anyone that's listening and watching right now, I'm actually going to, I will share openly with the blog, because I'll write a blog about this. I will share openly how you described, my life pattern, and you knew nothing about me. And to anyone that's watching or listening, they're going to be like, whoa, blown away and I know I was so blown away because everything that you had said, everything that you had seen in my hands, it was clear as day. This is 100% me, the good, the bad, all of it. Right. And now, to move forward with this, I guess, okay, two things, two parts. One is, how did you get into this? Because this is a unique field in the self-care industry of helping others and serving others. How did you get here? I'll start there.
I studied biochemistry, and then I totally got bored with it. And I moved into engineering and testing. And so for the last 20 years, I've been working as a software tester engineer, or actually up until 2007, I was working as a software tester. And that means they would throw this like massive software program over engineered. And it was up to me to make sure this thing worked. So I was used to, you can put a UFO in front of me and I had to reverse engineer it and make sure it's ready for market. So through this thinking over that, I would go, and I was always kind of curious. I got into twins separated from birth and was reading these stories. Or is it once you read one book, you're going to want to read three others. And then right at that point, I got my own hand read by a palmist in the Canary Islands, and there she was doing the tarot card and all that stuff. But there was some stuff she was just totally nailing me, and then she was guessing when I was moving to Europe, that I was a software engineer, my relationship, monogamy or non-monogamy situation there. And so, the serial monogamist that I was, I mean, she was just really nailing me on all these points. And it gave me the idea if palmistry is real. And if it's real, then there's got to be somebody that has a system that is not psychic and that can teach it. And so I started picking up books about it. And one of the first books I picked up was a book by an 1880s palmist named Cairo. And he was reading all of these amazing people across Europe and United States, Mark Twain and, these princes. And he was reading their hands. I thought, what, that is a cool life. And right in that point, I was like, that would be an amazing life just to have that skill. And that, by the way, anyone can have that skill. That's some of the things that I teach is how to have this. So if you're interested in learning how this works, then contact me, and I have a whole class there. So I got my hand read, and it was just like when the students ready, the teacher will come. I was right at the right place when this guy who had read 70,000 hands, and he's about as normal as it comes. His name's Richard Unger, and he's dry, he's skeptical, he doesn't follow astrology, but he knows this life pattern. And so 70,000 hands, it's like 3 people a day since the 1970s listening to their story and going, yep, there it is in the hand. Yep, that's the problem. I'm smart. And so I had him read my hand, and he nailed me. And then I was like, well, I had the money because I was an engineer. So I was like, okay, do my mom. Okay, do my girlfriend. Do the next one. And so all the girlfriends were like, now you understand me, right? And so I was like, I got really caught up in this, and I was like, well, I'm going to go all the way. And so I got this master hand analyst certificate, and this was as big. I mean, I had to study about 4,000 hands. And they had to put a hand in front of me and say, okay, who is this? And we're talking big binders of stuff that we had to memorize of all the different traits. And ultimately, I was like, well, this would be a great book. And if I'm going to do hands, I'm going to do people that I'm inspired about. And so I started testing them, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get an Oscar-nominated film director and then put the hand in front of them and see if they can guess not only if he's a film director, but if he can guess what kind of movies he's doing. And when they did that, then I was like, okay, I'm going to get the theological advisor to the Pope. I'll try to get the Pope. I couldn't get it. So I'm going to get that theological advisor, which turned out to be even better because this is the guy that's really running the show in the Vatican. So I'm like getting escorted by the Swiss guards and going into the cardinal headquarters. And that was really cool considering that they were, killing guys like me just a few hundred years ago. And they loved it. They understood it. I wasn't telling people's fortune or anything. I was saying this is a life pattern. And it's good to know that if you're going to study the Summa and you're trying to find a virtue in your life, it's kind of nice to know what your vices are too. And so I gave the handprint over to 2 people I was testing, Richard Unger and then one of his contemporary students who had read 20,000 hands. And they were telling the same story. And so I got really into it, and I was like, I'm going to write this book. And so I then spent a lot of money and traveled a lot and did a lot of, stars. And I was not necessarily interested in fame. I was interested in the people that was considered the best in their field, because once you see fame, you don't want to continue seeing that over and over. You want to get the whole map. So I was trying to get everyone from prostitutes to heroin addicts to people that astronauts, a clown, And then I was constantly giving them the handprints and seeing if they could guess it. And it was just so fascinating because then I was learning, okay, this is what this heart line means with this hand. This is what these fingerprints mean with this. So when I was giving them Eminem's hand, I was giving it to Richard, and Eminem was like, wow, this guy is really singing the blues and he can't stop. He's addicted to that. He's got relationship issue with and I don't even know if he has power struggles with men, and probably doesn't know his father. Then I give the handprint over to Pascal, and he was like, he has a different experience because he's a different person interpreting with the same theory. And he was like, wow, this guy is like doing, he's like really provocative, and but he's also got this artistic side. So provocative and artist, he's kind of like a rap guy, and he's got this Mr. Not Enough. So everything's got to be a challenge. So in this way, it was just like, wow, like how much free choice do we really have? Now, the problem that I had ultimately with the Institute of Hand Analysis, and everyone should go to them. I love them to death. It's great for the theory, but it was only taking it so far, is that you would see the hand, you would see everything. And you would just, and as I started reading clients, they would just go, oh my God, this is so sad. My life, you're right. And I was like, yeah, it sucks to be you. Goodbye. And so that part really, I hated that. I hated the disempowerment that was also coming with being able to show a mirror to somebody's life and being able to see their entire life pattern unfold. So there, I came up with an angle for the book, which was, how do you break free from this trauma that you've carried for a whole life? So therefore, the angle of the book was to find these people that really did find a breakthrough in their life and said, I'm happy. Okay, good. Those are the guys I want. I want to know, what is happiness for you? And what is that fulfillment for you? And how did you finally get that? And you'll be amazed at the stories that came out of that. And what was happening is that after every interview, we were ultimately getting to like their sole purpose. And you would see their whole journey coming from, let's take in your case of love, of how they broke through the walls and broke the ice with everyone in their family. And then as they started to get even a higher wisdom in their life, they started to realize they could forgive more often, and they opened up their heart. Next thing you know, they're in this constant place of divine love. And you just by the time you finish the interview that I was doing, that I recorded so that I could compare that with the hand analysis, I was in heaven on earth. And I was like, wow, if I can make anyone feel that amazing from their life pattern, no matter what, and show them their evolution, that their evolution is to go to heaven, right? And to be on heaven on earth. And I can show you how to do that and feel that good. If I could do that, that would be an amazing, amazing purpose for what I'm doing. And so I really got a direct experience of this over and over as I started to realize that the interviews were all going into this shifted place. And, we go to the as I was interviewing the heart surgeon, and on the way we were late. So we pull over to a gas station, and, we're late. So we're frustrated and we're a little bit edgy, and I'm concerned about, what the impact is, and the mind is just going nuts. So as I'm going to pay, everyone in there just looks like they're people in my way, right? And then I go to get the card, and then the card is just taking too much time. And then the guy just looks disconnected, right? But we go back after the interview, and we drive down that same road, and we go into that gas station, and we are in love because we just talked about the soul and everything. And that everyone in the whole gas station are in love too. And you go to the guy, and the same guy who I'm now getting a cup of coffee from and paying for that, he's showing his heart to me, and he's like, hey, how you doing? And that happened over and over. We go to a restaurant, and the woman just wants to sit and pull up a chair with us. And so we were realizing, okay, if the way I was causing that gas station and all those people to look impatient, then maybe there's something responsible I can take there, some responsibility I can take. And if I can experience that same level of breakthrough where I end up feeling like I'm on heaven on earth and everyone else gets to have that feeling too, then how do I do that? How do I stay in that breakthrough way? And ultimately, it's through the hands, it's through the fingerprints and seeing the evolution of that. And people are going through different stages of evolution. They're healing transgenerational traumas of, their great grandmother was saying everything should be strict and we never have enough, and their mother was saying the same thing, and they're saying the same thing, and they're about to tell it to their kids, and then they
And that's
finally go,
all in our hands.
yes, and then they finally go, stop, when I show them that, and they're like, oh my god, you mean I've been stressing out my entire life and I don't have to do that? Yes, you carry that stress, and every time you do, you age a little bit more. So if you can understand that and then take in how much you have done that in your life and how agonizing it has been for people to be with you when you're stressing out about that, and then take that level of responsibility and clean it up, you will have a breakthrough. And everyone then comes out of that with a new purpose. And then they create a vision in their life about what it's going to be with this new chapter. And in that way, I'm literally carrying people with their hand over to the next chapter of their life after they've been stuck in a marriage or stuck in never being able to get their business off the ground and so forth. And that's ultimately what is the hero's journey, because it takes me about 4 hours in the shift for me to introduce you to who you really are. And you're beautiful. Everyone's amazing. The room is outstanding. There's gold everywhere, right? When I finally show you what heaven on earth looks like when you see how much you love yourself. And when I show that, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I'm showing how you struggled and showing how that pattern, it can be dealt with compassionately, and to accept your pattern, and then what it's going to look like when you finally release it. So the way that I can accelerate your journey or your evolution in your life is by showing you that negative pattern and then have you feel it. And for most people, to do everything but want to feel it, like eating that asparagus. They're not going to want to touch it. And I'm going to say, stay here and touch it. And at that point, they're going to do everything but that. And then the fight or flight response will come in. They're going to freak out. And they're going to go, you're going to do this until the rest of your life. Has it looked back? Last 45 years, has it been anything different? So stay here. And for once in your life, love it. And so when they do, an amazing breakthrough happens and they open themselves to a new self. And I introduce them, I ultimately guide them. They're the ones seeing it for the first time, but they then take us to this place. And they're so beautiful. And they look like already within those 4 hours, like they've lost about 4 years of age. I can show you many before. You can look on the site, see it yourself. And when you have that, then all the challenge is can you stay in that place for 28 days? Because you're so addicted to the other way that's, constantly worrying about your finances. Can you chill out and be in that place for 28 days and create a vision of your life where you are touching a community of 16 people in your life, or ultimately 200, being in this place of love? What would that look like? That would be an amazing experience. You'd have the best month ever. So that's the idea of the hero's journey, which has all these things that I'm taking people through to keep that sense of self in place, like a cast does a broken arm. And so I need to be able to support you on that, so that new self is a place of habit, so that you don't go back to those old patterns of trauma. And you have to clear it out. So once you're in a big breakthrough, chances are you're not really aligned with your husband, or you're not really aligned with your brother you haven't talked to in 10 years. And even if you are feeling great, he's going to just say, well, good for you. Yay. Well, then you haven't really done the work to really clean up that relationship so that he's in a place of love with you. So that's what the hero's journey is about, is to share your vision and going, okay, guys, I got it now. I'm ready for my next chapter.
So, Brent, this is I love all of this so much. Like I said, I had planned some questions to ask you, and I really today it's a different episode actually because I really just listened because you have so much that you walked us through in a journey, and I want to thank you so much for this. And I want to ask you right
You're
now because we
welcome.
have to wrap this up, and I want to know,
Sure.
where's the best place? I mean, I see that your book's on that bookshelf behind you, right? Is that your book right
Yeah.
there? Yeah.
Yeah. The
So,
power
and
in
I
your
love
hands.
The Power in Your Hands. I love that book. It's absolutely incredible, and I want everybody that's watching this right now or listening. Can you share with us your website? And we're going to share
Yeah.
everything too. And this is your book, and you've worked with so many incredible people, and you've helped so many people help themselves and supported them on their hero's journey. So where's the best place to find you?
All right. So if you're listening right now, just do a 30-minute hand reading. I know you're just thinking, okay, this has been interesting, but if you've gotten this far into this episode, at least check it out. Just do 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, you send me photos of your hands. You go to www.thepowerinyourhands.com, thepowerinyourhands.com. And there, just sign up. Or if you trust enough, then just do the 2 hour hand reading and get over with it. So there, I'm going to create a diagram that's going to show, first off, what is your power? What is your energy? What are the talents that I see that if you don't express, will result in a penalty in your life of no meaning? And what then is your relationship style and what you're bringing to a relationship, and how that what kind of partners you really like. And then from there, I show you what is your biggest dream to have, because the fingerprints are going to show that. And then finally, the shadow, what is the area that you're going to struggle with? And then we can look at what percentage are you doing that? And then how are you going to break through that in the shift? What is the thing I'm going to hit you over and over in order to have you break through so that you already see the writing on the wall? And then what is possible in the hero's journey if you stay there? Like, really, what is it that's going to happen financially for you? So so check it out. That's the powerinyourhands.com. When you go in, you can sign up for a partner reading. So a lot of people want their partner to do it, or their mother to do it. So just get a partner reading in that case. And then from there, you can do the shift. And the shift is 700, and you just go through the process of the breakthrough. And then from that, you can go and do the hero's journey. And that's where the rubber really hits the road. And that's where real transformation. So you can see the before after photos in every case. In every case, you'll see, okay, at this stage in the hand reading, I lost about 2 to 5 years of age. In this case, it'll be more in the hand reading, you'll be more enlightened. You'll just feel good. That 2 to 5 years will be in the shift. And then in the hero's journey, it's usually about 6 to 10 years you're losing in age.
Wow. Okay. So everyone that's here with us right now, get on your phone or your computer, sign up for your 30-minute. Brent is offering this to you right now. So get online, get it. I'm going to share with you in my blog. I'm going to give everyone access to actually see how you read my hand. And if that's okay with you, because I think that it's really important to put it out there. And I absolutely will. So Brent, I want to thank you so very much for taking the time this evening. What time is it there? Oh my gosh, it must be so late.
It's time. It's about 5 minutes till 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, that makes zero difference because we're about 6 hours difference in the United States. So I have client loads from Hawaii all the way to Nepal. So that's no problem.
Well, thank you so much for making this time today. I can't wait to share this interview, and I can't wait to work with you more and see how we can support each other and also support everyone that's listening right now. So Brent, thank you for all that you do. This was beyond enlightening. And I'm thinking about my amygdala right now, and I'm like, okay, do I have any fear responses? Yeah. So anyways, thank you so very much. And you and I want us to connect soon after this. Okay.
Absolutely. And thanks for creating the space that I can, talk about this passion. Thank you so much. I hope it impacts many, many people in your life.
Thank you. Well, and thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for checking out and being on What's the Word. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you for joining me here at What's the Word. Follow us on social media with the links on the screen, and don't forget to like and share with your friend. Your support helps us grow and continue to make inspirational content. See you next time on What's the Word.